What if you could chemically alter motivation, attention, alertness, and reconstruct your lifestyle? Let me introduce you to nootropics. Now, nootropics is a very broad term, but let's give it a little definition. What is a nootropic? See, a nootropic is a substance intended to enhance cognitive function, things like memory, focus, learning, motivation, alertness, or mental performance. Okay, so one big thing is that just because you do not feel a compound does not mean it is not working. Yes, Adderall could be a good quote-unquote nootropic, but that does not mean that it is the best or that it mogs the rest. Now, ready to give some general insight on this. So I'm going to be doing a nootropic experiment to essentially, I'll be documenting my experience. I'll be documenting my experience on taking certain compounds to elicit certain results for my own benefit, as I have my own goal, my own intellectual goals that I would like to reach. Overall, you can, take what you like from this, maybe learn a thing or two, maybe even implement some of these things into your own life. I'll try and keep it more on the quicker, concise side, as this is a lot of information, and I know how short form content is. Okay, so first of all, why am I doing this? In short, I just want to leverage the tools available to me to reach my goals more efficiently. Sure, you could bike to work, but let's take the car. And yeah, like I mentioned, beyond just using things for like learning, you can use it to, change your lifestyle, form better habits, more productive ones. Use these things to help with mood, sleep, etc. And then, of course, my general 2 cents is always make sure you have your lifestyle on lockdown. If you don't, then these drugs really aren't going to be of any benefit to you. I can go into a huge tangent on this, but, don't be dumb, like overeating, put yourself in food coma, or, be nutrient deficient. Get some steps in, be active, go to the gym. And then a big thing here is going to be, sure, you can take all these compounds, but if you don't have strong, steady habits, then there's no point. You need to be able to apply yourself and actually build on something. Then another thing is consistency. I mean, if you studied it for one day, great, but it's not going to do much because you'll forget it in like 3 days. If you're consistent with it, then your efforts will compound. So I just want to give you guys an example of, how broad the term nootropic can be. This is essentially the different categories. Racetams are very popular, like phenylpiracetam, nefurastam, racetam, whatever you want to call it. Pyrastam, all those. There's things like cholinergics, dopaminergics. We'll get into cholinergics in a bit, especially that's a big aspect for my stack. And then, of course, everyone loves stimulants, small thing, even, very common stimulant like caffeine, which I love. Goated. And whatnot. And then, like, this is literally videos for another day, but let's go beyond that. A big thing, as I mentioned before, nootropics can solve a lot of things. A lot of people tend to deal with procrastination, lack of focus, downregulated receptors, especially with short form content and doom scrolling all day. Things like pornography, or even like very hedonic things like, I guess you could say, sex and eating junk food. Now, a big inspiration for essentially my protocol, or protocol that I'll be running, is from Leo Longevity. This guy puts out really good content, and I'm watching his videos on just the different neurotransmitters, and his use and take on pharmacology. Rest in peace, he did die, and I don't want you guys thinking, oh, he died from the drugs. Maybe, but no, that's not what it is. Correlation is not equal causation. But anyways, one of the main compounds I'm interested in leveraging is going to be donepezil. I've talked a lot about it because this is essentially an acetylcholine esterase, so I'll have elevated levels of acetylcholine, but we'll get further into that as we go in. Some other honorable mentions is more plates, more dates. Really enjoy this content, especially pharmacology and Geary's. Guys like Clay Cognitive, Tanner Tattered, and many others. Okay, so another thing is you need to understand what you are doing, in your mind. We have different neurotransmitters, and a big part of making a nootropic stack when you use one compound to help with the other, or vice versa, is what exactly is going on. Like, why would you use something like a stimulant? What problems are you specifically having that you need addressed that a compound can be utilized? Why would you use something that boosts BDNF? Difference between something a compound that forces something versus modulating the receptor. To be able to explain what you're using in your stack and not just throwing a whole bunch of things together and having the best. So to give you a little bit more context, let's look at the acetylcholine system. We have two families. We have the nicotinic acetylcholine, and we have muscarinic acetylcholine. Think of this one as just like the fast acting one, because it's primarily used for things like alertness, attention, stimulation. That's why when you pop it in, it has that acute effect. And then when you think of something more like this, think of things like something in the background, something that's more systematic, more modulatory. Both are important. And so that brings us to my little protocol. Now, this is like kind of like outdated. This is like kind of old. This is kind of like one of my older protocols, but we're going to be ignoring this. We're going to be ignoring some of these compounds because today I just want to focus on what kind of, more so going to be utilizing from Leo's protocol. And that's going to be very heavily leaning towards the acetylcholine system. Now, I did change some things. For example, I might be implementing a cholinergic receptor sensitizer like tryptophan, which he does not use, or I'm thinking of using a racetam, like nefurastam. Essentially, just to give you guys the gist of it, I'll be using donepezil, I will be using, I'll be supplementing with CBD-choline consistently, and then acutely I'll be taking alpha-GPC, and then potentially I might be using nicotine. I personally am going to use nicotine. I am concerned for addiction, but I know when used sparingly, it can be beneficial, especially with the stack, because it heavily relies on it. I already mentioned before the nicotinic acetylcholine, and then you can ignore the rest as those are topics on its own. But I hope you've gained something from this video. And I'm just waiting on my donepezil to arrive, and I can give you my own anecdotal experience. And I can go over things like study habits, time blocking, sleep, things of that nature that can be of benefit. But a main reason I'm doing this is because a lot of times we tend to see it on paper. You'll see it on like stacks on Discord or Reddit. But I think it's kind of nice when you're able to get a little bit more deeper insight onto someone's own anecdotal experience. So like I can tell you how it felt. I can discuss maybe some variables that may have affected it. Just a lot more specifics that you wouldn't get otherwise. But honestly, I just want to send. It's really what I hear.